Have you ever watched a building collapse? You know, bricks start to fall slowly but surely until the foundations can no longer support it and it collapses to the ground in a big heap. That kind of describes us this season, although now that I look at that analogy, I wonder if I've ever actually seen a building collapse. We're doing a plethora of scouting and signing and all kinds of good stuff over on stream right about now, including a player that even chat haven't seen yet that you'll be getting a preview of today in this video that I believe potentially could be the answers to all our prayers long term. So join us over there for that once you've caught up over here. VODs are on the second channel, you know the drill, linked in the description, join us over there as well. So last season I left you on a bit of a cliffhanger as we had two Maltese clubs in European finals. So before we get into anything else, let's check in and see how those went. Now unfortunately, because of the stupid match caching issue, we don't have a save from the middle of last summer that actually has this included, so we can't actually look at the proper match stats, but I'll have to just help you out myself. Next time I'll remember that that is actually a thing that will affect the finals as well. But unfortunately, Sweetie in the Conference League final lost by a single goal to nil to Marseille. It wasn't a good game. They didn't even have a shot until the 84th minute. What I will say though is that Sweetie did bungle two absolutely brilliant chances in stoppage time of that game and actually possibly should have won in the end if they'd just been able to finish their chances. But Marseille get in the end a pretty deserved victory. But hey, getting a Maltese Cup to a final, hell of an achievement. But what about us after our blistering season in the Champions League final? Yeah, it went a lot worse than that. Man United 4, Sirens 0. After a season of us just playing at our absolute limit and frankly playing very, very well for the most part across that, we got nothing in the final, got absolutely battered by Manchester United. And I think this was a surprise final for us. We'd never reached past the quarterfinals before, so it was a surprise for us to get there. It was good to get a taste of it, but as you can see, an early own goal from Jozanovic, then a horrendous defensive error, basically where we just let their striker run through our entire defense while they stood still because, you know, FM match engine and all that. Then it was 2-0. Then they scored another one after that, which I actually can't even remember what happened with that. And there was a penalty as well, which we really were silly enough to give away. And then we tinkered with stuff in the second half, couldn't get anything going, and we conceded a fourth goal. Shocking times for us, but it is what it is. I don't think we were ready to win a Champions League yet, but we're getting there. I think this team really is getting there, and I felt this season with the right inclusions in the right place, players firing, we could really have another go to go again. So with that in mind, we came into season 16 of Building a Nation with Sirens of Malta, still on quite a high after getting an absolutely ridiculous 18 points in the coefficient chart last year. We felt that the sky was the limit as we were in the exact same position again coefficient wise and felt that, you know what, with the right help it was possible to do it again, and that was indeed our plan. It's been an insanely busy year in terms of transfers both in and out. We've spent a record £50 million on transfers over the course of this season. Some of them have been necessitated by other things which we'll learn about, but I still think we've been able to pick up some particularly good players. But in order to balance that out a little bit, there have been a few players who've left the club to try to balance the books. Not huge ones, but still some good money. The biggest out was that of Fred Lasso, the Colombian goalkeeper, who was mostly just playing backup to us and hadn't really played a great deal of games for us, so we were able to sell him to Porto for £12.5 million. We felt the money was right for a guy that we hadn't really paid much for. I think it was like a 10x on our investment on the player, which is always nice to get a little bit of money coming in just to help feed our transfer addiction. In some ways, an actual bigger out in many ways was Ramiro Rojas for £8 million to Dortmund. For a model citizen, he'd been nothing but trouble the entire time he was at the club. He could never really get anything going. Despite that good passing and vision, he just didn't seem to have the cojones to play the role that we wanted him to. Centre-back Jorge Barbosa also moved to Al-Weda for £6 million. Again, it was just getting some players that weren't really playing very much, were slightly older, off the bill. I think Barbosa actually joined us on a free transfer, so to get £6 million again, it was just money off the wage bill, more money into the club, and he was highly injury prone. Another player left the club in Benjamin Sotelo, the young Chilean international. He went to Al Riyadh for £7.25 million. Quite a cheap one, I would suppose, but the football just wasn't there for him. We had other players coming through that I wanted to make some room for, and again, it was more money coming in. But all in all, with that and some other outs, sort of little mini outs in that period, we managed to rake in £42 million worth of transfer revenue this year, which we were able to plough back into the club, and that is exactly what we did. The first of whom was youngster Jairo Vargas, who I've just noticed is up to 5-star PA, which is kind of intriguing. £40,000 signing from Guadeloupe in Costa Rica, is out on loan at St Andrews in the second tier this season at the moment, so I don't know if that's really going to continue or whether we can bring him back. That injury isn't looking great though, is it? It's only a groin strain actually. I think he could be quite an interesting player in the future, already worth 10 million quid. That'd be a great signing for someone. We also brought in Draman Fofana for $6.25 million from Philadelphia Union, the 20-year-old Malian international. The worst thing about this, really, is the fact that, firstly, he's described as a wonder kid, which is actually ridiculous to me, because considering that potential, we're just really not sure about him at the moment. Has played a lot of games for us, well, a fair amount of games for us as a backup centre-back for us this season. He's actually wanted by Al Sadd, which is intriguing. Needless to say, he was actually playing for Luton back in the day, but they sold him to Philadelphia Union for £70,000, which is an absolute gut shot, really, when you think that he could could have been playing for Luton permanently, but such is life. He's done all right for us this season. I'm happy with that. However, if there was big interest from Saudi and the money was enormous, maybe we could look at moving him on, but I really do like him. Next up, though, was a big signing. This was Nauyas Villarreal, a 30-year-old Mexican striker, Mexican international, and you might be thinking to yourself, how in God's name does this guy only have 6 caps for Mexico? So that was our thought too upon signing him, and then we figured out why. Point being, we got him on a free transfer. So he's on £31,000 a week, but for free, we couldn't really say no, and I've been fairly impressed with him this season. Hasn't played a huge amount of games for us, only the 12 starts, but 15 goals from him to be essentially our backup striker. I was fairly pleased with that investment on a free transfer. The game tells us we're in FFP trouble, even though I know that we're not. The issue with that is, though, the board will act as if we are in FFP trouble, and they will sell our players accordingly, even though they don't need to. We're projected to lose 16 million over the next 3 years or whatever, which would fail us FFP. The only issue is it doesn't take into account any prize money we're going to get from the Champions League in the next 3 years. It's as if we're just not going to get any, basically. And the problem with that is, it means that our board might start selling our players out from underneath us, even though there's no reason to. So we may well need to make a couple of early summer sales just to balance that a little bit and try to keep a higher float. It's really annoying, but the projections in FM really do screw you sometimes. Speaking of the Mexican national team, we also picked up Gabriel de Jesus Cuadros, a 19-year-old wonder kid again, who we actually found purely because we were looking at the Mexican national team, wondering why on earth Villarreal wasn't getting regular game time. And this guy was available for £8 million. And that's quite a lot of money for us to drop on a guy. Did have higher potential than that, and I do wonder if he's again the type of player that we might be able to shift this summer. Let me guess, wanted by a Saudi club. Oh, PSG. Oh, okay. Maybe we could fleece the hell out of PSG for a player that isn't actually playing all that much and try to get a little bit of profit out of it. Then we dropped a little bit more money on Jakob Birkeland from Bodø, the 20-year-old Norwegian international. Now, he is a centre-back, but we've also been training him to play midfield as well, because we think that he actually has the right minerals to play that backup ball-winning midfield role, and we really wanted a versatile player to have. So he can play as a centre-back for us, completely comfortably, and is very good. 6'4", great jumping reach, really nice mentals as well. He's not even slow either, but we felt as a ball-winning midfielder he could actually do a fantastic job because he has insanely high work rate and stamina, or certainly an insanely high work rate, great teamwork as well. So we felt as a backup to Gert Gillet, he would be an excellent addition to us, and I think genuinely he could be really, really good. Then what I would consider to be one of our best snipes in a long, long time. This is Johan Gudmundsson, who we picked up from Throtter Reykjavik over in Iceland for 2.6k. £2,600 for this guy. 18-year-old centre-back with 17 jumping reach. He's 6'6". You can't teach that. 15 tackling, decent heading, marking and positioning are okay. To be that good at 18, I'm delighted with him. And the fact that he's gone on loan to Marsa is even better, because having a guy like this out on loan at the Maltese side is superb news. Speaking of bargains, actually, Alex Mensah, £275,000 from Hearts of Oak. He's very good. No Ghana caps yet, but I think, again, he could be another one of those types of players that is more of a playmaker, and we're not entirely sure what we want to do with him because he doesn't really have the advanced playmaker attributes. However, we're considering a slight tactical switch where a deep line playmaker could be more useful. But needless to say, I still do really like Alex Mensah. I would love him to find a loan somewhere at the moment because he's not going to play for us currently. But if we could get him on loan to someone like Hamrin even, that could be a massive game changer for a club like them. Then obviously we have possibly my favourite signing, many might see it of all time, in fact, Carlos Vieira, the 18-year-old Brazilian centre-back, joined us in January for £3 million. I believe he is the future of our backline. This season, he's only made 5 starts, 8 substitute appearances, but that was since January, remember? And I think next year, he's a shoo-in for being a backup centre-back for us, and will probably get himself at least 15 league games, maybe some substitute appearances in Europe. I think we'll see at least 20-25 games out of him in all comps, including, like, substitute appearances, and I think that's going to be really helpful for his development, because I think I'm pinning my hopes on him being the kind of guy that could one day potentially even lead us to glory, although leadership of 6 maybe not. Needless to say, I think he's amazing, and I'm so excited about him. Because we were also able to pick up this guy, Roberto Carlos Avila, 27-year-old Mexican, on a free transfer from Pachuca. And now he's worth £15 million. And he has phenomenal striker attributes. And again, he joined us in January upon that deal going through. Huge wages. But again, he's another one of these players that either he works out here, and he's a late developer, which is just nice to see, or I think there's huge potential for a massive move to potentially Saudi, where we could get absolute moon money for him. And that's just really going to help keep the club afloat over the coming seasons. We also had Facundo Pereira join us for £1.2 million from Montevideo City. And we're not really sure what we want to do with him at the moment. We would love to find him a loan. He's already got caps for Uruguay. He's a striker, but he's got no finishing composure, and we use a trek here. We're not entirely sure. What would you actually, friends watching this, do with a player like this? Because I think he's possibly even more of a winger, but we don't use wingers, and we're not going to change our entire tactic just for him. But what would you do with a player like this? Because it looks like he has high potential, but I'm just not sure how we would mould him into actually what we want, because I believe there is potentially a world-class player here. It's just knowing where to go with him. So I'm genuinely interested in your thoughts as to what you would do with Facundo Pereira if he was your player. I know there's been a lot of players to go through so far. We signed 63 people over the last calendar year, just not including the guys that joined us technically before the window opened, or rather on the window day, but that's technically part of last season. We've actually signed probably close to 70 players in that time as we continue to build the loan farm up, which we'll talk about a bit more later. But there is one more player that I want to show you who is not quite the most expensive player we've ever bought, but he's only just shy of that, and I think he's going to be really useful for us coming into the next season. And this is he. This is Pebbles, a £15 million signing from Flamengo, and I still think we got a bargain, frankly. I think he is the tits. He's 22 years old, not a Brazilian international yet. We've got him on a long-term contract with an extension clause, if I remember correctly. He kind of just does it all. And there was a reason why he had to join us, but that comes around a little bit later when I'll explain. But essentially, we got an absolutely crucial injury and were completely knackered as a result of it. And Pebbles was really supposed to be the saviour. Didn't quite work out like that, but we'll discuss that a little bit later. His name isn't actually Pebbles. His name is Pablo Henrique de Santos Oliveira. But essentially, I kept thinking his name was Pedro instead of Pablo, and then at one point called him Peblo, and then chat started calling him Pebbles as a result of that. So he's earned his new nickname, and I think we quite like having a player called Pebbles. So hopefully he can be like Tex-Mex was in the last save, because apparently just scouting players was enough to give me amnesia.
He is an Icelandic team, yeah. Íþrótta Bandalag Akranes. I'm sorry I've said that so appallingly. Icelandic people holding their heads in shame. Who's this guy? That's oh, Jesus.
Although that does seem to be affecting the manager as well.
Thanks for the help. So Juraj Lahovi thanking me is in my managerial timeline. Wait, twice. Is Janos having an affair with Juraj Lahovi?
So with all that in mind, let's get over to the league. Pretty standard, really. Won the league by 20 points when unbeaten, as we do. That's kind of to be expected at this point. One of these days we will get that invincible season, but it didn't happen in the MTK save. We've come damn close in this one, but it just will not happen for us. The usual suspects doing the usual suspects thing. Hamron actually getting to second spot this time around with 54 points. Sweetie up there as well. Guja, of course, the sort of the fourth best side, I would say, comfortably sitting themselves in fourth place. Birkikara this time around, though, ended up being the fifth place team. So it seems that them and Hibernians basically just swap over every single season, but they are clearly the best of the rest too. So we are getting that sixth team starting to emerge. So when we hopefully do over the coming seasons get that sixth European spot, I think Hibernians will be perfectly placed to actually take that, and then it's just a question of an absolute free-for-all for the other one. Unfortunately, down at the bottom, Melita finally end their stint. I think they finished 12th every single year upon getting promoted. This year they simply couldn't do it. Minus 37 goal difference. Luter upon promotion also go down. Marsa, very different story though. Minus 36 goal difference, but did manage 25 points. Now, this is where things get interesting. So you remember me saying last time that we were trying out finding coaches that had, or managers technically, to bring in as coaches for our under-19s that had a certain tendency, and that tendency was uses loan market or something like that. So we made it our mission to sign as many manager/coaches to our under-19s and under-23 staff who had that tendency, just to see what would happen if they would potentially get poached by other Maltese sides. For whatever reason, they seem super interested in those coaches, and I believe it's actually down to the fact that there are our under-19s and they have a Waves compensation for managerial role, and they're sort of right in the reputation range that these clubs would be aiming for whatever reason, because they're not actually that good coaches. But the key thing is they have that tendency. We've already had 4 of them poached by other Maltese sides over the last calendar year, one of whom has gone to Marsa and has turned things around massively there. And last time I also mentioned that a tool was being developed to help you guys find them, because the problem is the game simply doesn't let you search for tendencies on coaches as far as we're aware, and it can't be done in either the editor, not that it matters because we don't have that switched on, neither can it be done in things like FMRTE. However, I Love Slugs from chat actually developed a special third-party tool that will allow you to find those coaches, and it actually does work. Now, it's still in early development, so if you are interested in it, head over to the Discord. It's linked in the description. In the general channel chat, you'll find it pinned in there with the information. There's a lot of still working out a lot of bugs and stuff with it right now, but I've managed to get it working, and it has allowed us to find some of those kind of coaches, because otherwise there's simply no other way for you to track them down using the actual tools the game gives you. So if you do want to give that a go, check over that. But again, bear in mind, very early access right now, but again, it is available for you guys to test out in your Building a Nation saves, should you want to try this out, since it does seem to actually have legs. In the second tier, Gzira absolutely stomped home. Now, we highlighted them last season and how well they did when their new manager came in. He's another one of the users loans farm guys. This year, they didn't even really take that many loans, but they absolutely walked the league, 17 points clear of promotion, and they had promotion sewn up with like 6 games to go. So that brings us on to Europe, and most importantly, us in Europe. After recovering from our Champions League final loss, we really wanted to get going again. But what it meant, of course, was last year we actually got number 2 on the yearly coefficients, and normally that grants you an extra spot in the Champions League. However, for reasons unbeknownst to me, and I'm sure there's some complicated coefficient and permutation reason why that wasn't the case, we didn't get an extra team in Europe this year. We still only got 5, which in a way was very good for us because we didn't want an extra team in Europe. It would dilute things too much. But however, the bonus that we did get was guaranteed group stage qualification a year early, because we were going to get that for 10th the coming season anyway, but we got it a year early. So yeah, that's a thing that happened. We don't know why that was the case, but it did. So it meant that we got 5 teams in Europe and we got straight into the Champions League groups. You're not going to believe this, but the save file that I use for mid-season so that we can actually access the earlier Champions League fixtures, for some reason this year has cut off 1 match early, and our first game isn't included in that either. But it was this, a 3-0 victory over Porto away from home. Jezanovic, Vidazinha and Henry Watara with the goals. So sorry about that. The others are all here. It's just that first one for some reason. We then followed that up with an absolute humbling at the hands of Manchester City. Gibril 4, I would argue, actually had a pretty good day to keep them at bay, but it was only a penalty in the end that actually saw them sink us. Unfortunately, we lost 3-2 at home to Juventus. Yeah, luck just really wasn't our side in this one. Like, it's a very even game. I think you could say we edged it ever so slightly, but a draw would have been a fair result. And unfortunately, we just simply did not get that draw. And the bad luck in the Champions League from last season just would not go away. Luckily, we needn't have worried as we went out in the next match against PSV Eindhoven and humped them 5-0. Villarreal really hit the ground running in this game due to an injury to Kwasi Awuah, and he had an absolute monster affair there. Quadros got one in this one. Padilla grabbed a penalty. Really comfortable performance. We felt good. 2 wins out of 4 wasn't amazing, but we were feeling confident, that we were hopefully just going to get some luck going our way. And then the international break struck, and Kamga and Lend are sort of linchpin of the midfield. Got the key pass, 2 key passes and assist in this game. He's always there. He just runs that midfield for us. Got a hip injury in a game against Zambia, and would be out for 5 months. And that really hit. At the time, we didn't think it would hit us that hard. It did. And I think it was really noticeable in the next game against Shakhtar. We lost all creativity. Radek Markovic came in place of him and actually did score a goal, but really we just couldn't get any creativity going beyond that, and it really did suck. We just lost control of the midfield in this game and gave away a 93rd minute goal against Shakhtar, which was really poor as well. Like, we should have won this game based on that, but yeah, they get a tap in the 90th minute. What can you do? Terrible from us, really bad. And then unfortunately, it went from bad to worse as we then lost at home again against an Italian side, 4-3 this time to Milan. Would you believe it? With a 92nd minute winner. The late goals and the frustrating timing of, the frustrating way they're conceded was just very annoying for us. Perez at least managed to step it up for us in this game with 2 goals. Krastev got a goal and 2 assists here, and he really has been a standout for us this season. But again, to concede 4 goals off of 1.25 XG was shocking. Again, the game blamed the goalkeeper, but from what I could tell in the game, it didn't really seem to be his fault. I believe there was actually a back pass goal, which was given as a goalkeeper error, even though it was the centre-back that played it to him, and he couldn't reach it in this one. Just one of those horrendous games where everything just went out the window. Weren't even that bad creativity-wise in this game, but we just lost control of the midfield battle and had nobody really offering us anything in the creativity role, really. But after Christmas, we picked things up a little bit. Villarreal, Paez, and Markovic, again, filling in for that role, did a decent job for us in this game, got a really strong result away at Sporting. We felt better now. We had 1 more game left against Roma in the group, and getting that win for us would be really important just because it would give us a chance at top 16. It's crazy that we're even sort of thinking about that, but the luck just wasn't on our side this time. And then we had this absolute monstrosity. I couldn't believe this. Took the lead after 16 minutes against Roma. All was well. We're absolutely annihilating them in this game. In the end, you can see 3.52 actually, 11 shots on target. We managed 1 goal. We also got Palacio and Gert Gillet injured in the first half of this game, which would see them miss 7 weeks apiece. So we were down to even less players. Markovic, again, didn't do a bad job in this game either, but just one of those games where you just sat there with your head in your hands going, what are you supposed to do? You'll also note that Kamga was actually returning for this game off the bench, did a little bit of a better job of it there, but he was still really lacking match sharpness and we couldn't really rely on him at this point. But yeah, utterly awful. And sadly, that meant that we finished 21st in the Champions League group with just 10 points on the board, plus 6 goal difference while we're down there. But just hard luck again. And the reason we'd signed Pebbles, of course, was to fill in that spot for Kamga and Len. But then the moment that Pebbles joined us, he got an injury that would see him out for 6 weeks almost immediately and didn't get a chance to play until the Champions League knockouts, which really did cost us too. The injury situation actually got so bad that we were essentially giving any potential new signings the astrology treatment.
I'm seeing some knee ligament problems, potentially. Yeah, I've seen some groin issues too. Yeah, you're right. Look at us, by the way, chat, analysing a player's injury history, trying to find patterns in his injuries. It's like FM astrology. He's such a Sagittarius, chat. Only Sagittariuses would have groin injuries.
But our reward for getting 21st place was at least to play 15th place Inter. So there was that. I would have much rather taken Porto, though. That would have been great for us there. But Inter were only really 3 points above us. I felt like we can give them a go. And then we had this monstrosity. We lost 3-0 at home to Inter. They scored the same goal twice. They just got to the byline, whipped it across, and it went through all 3 of our centre-backs' legs. You know how it is. Those goals you'll just concede sometimes. We once again couldn't score a goal to save our lives in this game. Like 3-0 is extremely harsh on us here. But once we lost 3-0 at home, we thought, right, we've absolutely had it here. Kamga again returned for this one, but was lacking match sharpness and just couldn't really get himself going. We did a monstrous job in the second leg as well to win the match by 4-2, but it wasn't enough and we went out 5-4 in aggregate. Everton Krastev again put in a 10 out of 10 rating in this game. He scored twice from wingback and got an assist, 3 key passes. Lahovi was great as well. The wingbacks were killing it in this game, but we just couldn't keep it tight at the other end. Kamga again had a poor day in this one. Had to play in a different role due to the injury to Gertjan as well. The midfield was just utterly lost, and we just simply didn't have the depth there, which is something we're looking to rectify. But yeah, a really disappointing way to go out. I think the injuries massively cost us. Losing Palacio gave us a chance of absolutely zero depth. You'll also have noticed in that first game that a chap called Side Castera had to start at left wing back for us due to Lahovi's suspension. We'll talk more about him in a minute because there is a weird story about him I want to tell you, but that's for later in the video. Point is, that was us out of the Champions League at the first knockout round and just wondering what the hell had happened this season. But I'm not tearing up the playbook or anything. I think that it mostly was just down to injuries, players having to move around, suspensions, various things like that. With the strengthening to the squad and the little bit more depth we've got this year, I'm really happy with how things look, and I think we're going to be good going into the future. It has also just occurred to me that I never showed you that player that I was on about that's going to be joining us this summer. How could I forget that? I'm going to show you him now. This is he. This is Gonzalo Reynoso. He is an 18-year-old Chilean, currently plays for Colo-Colo. Will be joining us in a couple of weeks, basically. And we were talking on stream about how the one thing we felt was missing from some of our strikers was raw physical ability along with their technicals and mentals. And the problem is some players don't really seem to develop much physically, and we've had that kind of issue. And then literally 3 days after stream, I think it was, this guy rocks up in a scout report from us, and I thought to myself, you know what, screw it. I think he maybe could be him, potentially. Good consistency, resilient personality, unflappable, which is great for the professionalism. He's 6'2", can jump, he's fast, he's got great natural fitness, he's agile, he has a lot of things that I would really want. He's got better physicals than a lot of our 25-year-old, 26-year-old players, and his mentals and technicals are not bad either. He will need some work in those areas, but I believe that we could craft him potentially into the striker of our dreams one day. Worst news about us getting knocked out of the Champions League as well is that the game then used that as an opportunity to lull me into a team meeting, and I actually fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker.
I've never seen this team meet before. Oh, for fuck's sake, FM. It's done me. It's absolutely done me. It's lulled me into a team meeting for absolutely no reason, and I actually fell for it.
So all around, pretty woeful from us on a European level, but we did still have 4 Maltese friends that could hopefully help us out along the way, dig us out of the hole a little bit. First up, we had Goodyear United in the Conference League, our only competitor that actually starts in there, and they had a great time of it. Fram Reykjavik 3-1, 3-0, very comfortable, Sigma Olomouc, and then Rakov of Poland. Like reasonable draws that you'd expect them to do quite well in, and they actually did, and that was them into the Conference League big group. Then it was Hibernians into the Europa League qualifiers themselves, a reasonably close tie against Lesnichar was then followed by a ridiculously good win against Rapid Vienna of Austria, which came out of nowhere before falling to another Austrian side in the shape of Sturm Graz. But that was exactly what we wanted, because the last thing we needed was Hibernians being in the Europa League groups. But again, that pushed them into the Conference League groups, and things were looking very good, as Hammer and Sweetie were basically shoo-ins anyway. Hammer went straight into the Europa League playoff round, and unfortunately for us, in a way, got the easiest draw possible against Chernomorets of Ukraine, and they beat them 2-1 and 2-0 to progress to the group stage of the Europa League instead. I would have much preferred them in the Conference League like last year, but you don't always get what you want. And we know what happened the last time Hammer were in the Europa League groups. They actually did qualify out of it. We didn't expect that to happen again, though. And lastly, we had Sweetie United, who only needed a single tie win anywhere along the way to guarantee themselves the Europa Conference League groups, which we felt they'd be capable of doing. After falling at Rangers in a very close game where they actually got themselves a 2-2 draw at home, we were surprised about that. They then managed to get the victory that they so craved by beating AIK of Sweden by 6-2 on aggregate, then fell out against Eintracht Frankfurt in the playoff round of the Europa League, which is fairly acceptable. These guys did win the Europa League not 2 seasons ago, so they were also into the Europa Conference League groups. It's all good news. That meant for back-to-back seasons we had all 5 Maltese sides, including us, obviously, into the group stages of something, so we felt there were points to be had. But let's start with Hamrun in the Europa League, where sadly it did not go super well for them. In the end, just 4 points after 8 games. They simply did not have enough this time around. Their draws were very, very difficult. You can see here the one win they got was actually against Victoria de Guimarães, of all people, with 4-0. Got a draw against Bologna as well, which is very surprising, as they're a decent team too, but they lost against Brøndby, they lost against Newcastle, Standard Liège, Club Brugge, Braga, and Besiktas. They love the bees, and unfortunately it just wasn't there for them. A very tough draw, but what did you expect? They go out, but they at least take some points with them. Conference League, on the other hand, was a very different matter. Now, last time, if you recall, Birkirkara only managed to get 1 point as our lowest possible competitor. This year, Hibernians filled that role and did better. They did only get the 1 win, but it was against Sparta Prague by 4-0. Got draws against Olympiakos and Petra Club. It's Petra Club 1. That's the one where I feel like they should have got the result. Admittedly, admittedly, they also should have beaten Linfield. They lost 1-0 at home to Northern Irish club Linfield, which was a real sting in the teeth there for them. Also lost to Lazio and Istanbul Başakşehir. They should have done slightly better, honestly, but it's good to have them at least in that position. Sweetie, on the other hand, who reached the final last year, only managed to get 7 points on the board and hadn't won a game until their last 2 matches. Got a draw against Malta, 3 defeats against Bayer Leverkusen, Brann and Nantes, which makes sense, they're all very good sides, but it took their last 2 games to actually get them over the line. A 5-2 against Karabag and a 6-0 against FK Sarajevo, hence why their goal difference is actually reasonably okay to manage to qualify them in 21st place, which is not ideal. On the other hand, Gudja were very good. 6th place, 4 wins out of 6 with Maccabi Haifa, Pushkas, Astana and Istanbul Başakşehir in there too. A draw against Chernomorets, which is not a bad result either, and a defeat to Hearts, which was a little bit more surprising, admittedly, particularly as they were at home, but 13 points on the board for them. Immediate qualification to the round of 16 as well. Very good news. But that, of course, meant Sweetie would have to face off against someone to get themselves through to the next round. And unfortunately, they got the worst possible team, and that was CSKA Sofia, who had just only narrowly missed out on getting into the top 8. But we were given a hell of a surprise, as in the first leg, they clapped them 4-0. Novesh, Fleming with a penalty, Sakawa and Torres with the goals. And we were like, brilliant. This is perfect. They're sailing through to the next round. Except that was until they then lost the second leg 7-0. Annoyingly, the game won't let me show you. CSKA Sofia, they had, what was it, 2.1 XG. They scored 7 goals off of, like, I think it was 8 shots on target. Just one of those things, unfortunately. Just the last thing we needed, really. Needless to say, we were infuriated by that, but that's just life. And this was coming just after we'd been knocked out by Inter, so we were just ready for it all to end. Luckily, we did still have Gudja, who went straight into the next round, and drew off against Linfield, who we felt they were definitely the better of the 2 sides. A Rediuncic penalty was enough to get them a draw in the first leg, followed up by another goal from the exact same player to give them a 1-0 victory in the next leg and push them through to the quarterfinals. Unfortunately, though, their reward for getting to the quarterfinals was a tie against Sevilla, where they lost 4-1 in the home leg there. Not great. Second leg wasn't much better, as they eventually fell by 8-1 on aggregate, and you could see that Sevilla literally scored 8 goals off of like less than 3 actually. Our lads were just not up for it, unfortunately. We watched the games and it was an absolute, they were battering them, really. So that was unfortunately the end of the line for Maltese clubs. But, you know, with us doing so poorly, it didn't actually seem to be quite the embarrassment that it might have looked like. As in the end on the year, we still ended up with 12 points, which is not a bad season by any means. I think that still puts us like 8th or 9th on the yearly coefficients, and it was still a 4-point gain over what we had from the previous one, which is not bad. Now, we haven't gained any positions, as you'll imagine, but what we haven't done is lost any either. In fact, now we have a 10-point gap between us and Belgium, which we're managing extremely nicely. We're not in any real danger of losing 10th spot anytime soon, and you can see that we have made nice inroads into those teams above us, the likes of Denmark, Sweden, and the Netherlands.
Sample of throat singing to compare your stellar's performance. Oh, now we're talking. Give me that throat. Oh, God. Let's skip to the good bit. Imagine you join the stream now. Just got this game Football Manager. Gonna have a little look on Twitch. See if there's anyone that play. Maybe I could pick up a tip or two. Load this guy's stream because it's just there. Oh yeah, that's right, Mongolian throat singing, obviously.
So that brings us to the youth intake, except it doesn't, because it was the worst one we've had so far, and there was genuinely not a single player that is even vaguely worth showing you, and I suspect I'll be saying that a lot throughout the rest of the save, but one of these days I'm going to come to you and say, we had a 5-star golden generation, and you're going to love it, but today is not that day. So from a team stats standpoint, our biggest issue this year has been goal scoring. There's just been not a lot of it. Top scorer, Perez, with 15. It's just not enough, is it? I mean, the thing is, the XG's not there either. We've not been as creative in certain ways as we would have liked, and I think a lot of that came to losing that creativity in the midfield. And it's not always those midfielders actually creating the key passes themselves, but it's getting those hockey assists. It's looking for those spread passes to our wing-backs, and they just didn't seem to be quite as creative as they have been in recent years. I think a lot of it does just simply come down to not having the right personnel in those positions this year, especially once we lost Gert Gillet as well, which meant we then had to put a more creative player sort of in that role as well, and it just kind of lost us a lot. Like, Villarreal was arguably our top. He was our top scorer in the Champions League this season with 4. And that should tell you everything you need to know. And 3 of those were in a single game. Kwasi Awar, I still say, has had a good season for us, though. He's not expecting to score 20 goals, but he did get 15 assists and 14 goals. He's the guy that's really stood out to me as being genuinely world-claess for us this year in a sea of players that perhaps haven't been. Another is that of Jose Padilla, who did manage 11 goals, but maybe could have done a little bit better. A few down on assists this year, too. The other problem with Padilla is that in the last league match of the season, he got himself it was actually a bit earlier than that, a cruciate ligament injury, and is probably going to miss until Christmas at this rate, maybe even longer. So we're going to be missing Padilla for a very, very long time. Even Henry Rotara, who we were thinking of getting rid of, actually signed into a new contract, still contributed 13 goals. We did score a lot of goals. It was just spread out a little bit more perhaps than normal, but I do think there was still a bit of a downturn in it. As far as assists go, Kwasi was up there. Lahovi and Krastev were goated again. Krastev with 13 goals and 13 assists and 7 goals this season from right wing back. That's like Vida kind of numbers, and I'm very proud of him for that. Pebbles, you can see as well, got 9 assists since he joined us and 3 goals in only 12 starts. That that to me is a real sign that he could be the guy we've been waiting for this entire time coming into next season. And I think he could play a really key role. The fact is he can actually occupy that Padilla role as well. And if he does do that, I'd be curious to see. The one thing he did do is underperform his XG quite a lot. So that's a little bit of a worry. I said there was one other player that I wanted to highlight to you before we actually look at some of the players' individual progress and the lineup for it. And that is this guy here, Paul Cide Castera. Had a 3-year spell at Mostar where he was actually very successful for them. Now, the weird thing about him is that he's a winger / left wing back. And at times, because of our depth issues, he actually had to play left wing back for us and played a lot of games for us domestically this season as a left wing back. In 10 stars, he banged 7 goals and 5 assists, all from left wing back for us this year. And I simply do not know how. Now, he does have good finishing and composure, and I think that's the only reason. But it does show that sometimes it is a bit about the process than it is about personnel. But he had to play that one Champions League game for us and had an absolute nightmare because he's not on that level. But I just wanted to highlight him because he's had an unbelievable season for us. Another player to highlight, of course, is Gert Gillet, who I genuinely believe is actually one day going to be better than Tony Sunday. He always actually got a bit more marking now. I think he's going to be a world-class defensive midfielder / whatever we want him to be, basically, in that ball-winning role for us. And he's shown it. And just looking at his progression over the last sort of, well, I'll just show it over all time. He's gone up 6 in marking. My thesis on any defensive player is that, particularly when it comes to things like centre-backs, if they've already got good heading, or at least passable heading and good tackling, even if their marking and positioning is crap, I don't care. I will sign them because that is the easiest thing to improve on a defensive player. Gone up 6 in marking, and he's already I think he's still only 21. Up 3 in positioning as well, which is up to 16. Some of the physicals are going up too. He's got 3 strength there as well. So just nice mental improvements there too. Even his long shots are improving. I think he's really, particularly that decisions as well, has gone up over the last few years too. That's really taken a huge step up in the right direction. Same thing I think applies to Lahovi. He was a guy that we thought was going to be a backup player for us with his like 4-star potential, and he's just exploded at the moment. I mean, looking at his development, I think he's got some absolutely wild stuff in here as well. Look at the state of that. He's been insane. Again, his marking and his positioning has gone up hugely as well. But a lot of his attacking attributes too, even his crossing has gone up, which is surprising considering how good it already was. So many good. His positioning is great. His vision's gone up by 4. And I think the other player worth highlighting, I suppose, would be Krastev this season as well. Like, his attributes are not quite on the level of Lahovi by any means. He's nowhere near that, and he is a little bit unhappy at the moment because I wouldn't give him a new contract, and I may well try and do that in the summer because he probably does deserve it. But point being, we felt that he might be an okay player for us, but he's developed astonishingly well. Had a huge drop in his his stamina there. That's really weird that his stamina dropped so much there. There's lots of like weird fluctuations. May have been an injury that he achieved in there. I don't know. Weird bit. But that being said, his dribbling has gone up hugely. Interestingly, his marking and positioning have not gone up a great deal, but he was already quite good there. Insane growth as well in things like vision and off the ball. +6 to off the ball is crazy. No real physical improvements, but he was already fairly good in those to begin with, so I'm not super complaining about that. Now, the way we've lined up this season has been fairly similar to normal. This is a slight version of the tactic that's a little bit different that we were trying out in some league games towards the end of the season. Not sure where we feel about that, but when we're playing the normal approach, generally speaking, it's been Perez and Quasi with Padilla in behind, but Pebbles, since he's joined us, has operated in either of these two roles. Kamga and Gillet, generally speaking, although Markovic played a lot of games in here as well. Lahovi and Krastev, but mostly Palacio and Krastev, generally speaking. Lahovi's coming a bit more because of the injuries. That, we were also trying out Palacio as a wide centre-back in this system instead, because he's absolutely insane for that position. Then with Jozanovic, Paez and Kadri as the back line, allowing players like Fofana and Vieira to kind of come in and play in the league games and get some, a reasonable amount of game time as well this season for them too. Jibril Fall as well in there too. Obviously, we've had Bagora as our backup goalkeeper this year a lot of the time, along with Wisniewski. Just quickly on the Malta national team, they are up to 144th now. Have managed to get themselves a win against San Marino in the Euro qualifying group. Only lost 2-0 to Portugal as well, which was a very even game as well. They actually created chances against them too. Unfortunately, they did get relegated from the Nations League despite getting a really good run of things. That defeat on the final day to North Macedonia cost them because Luxembourg went and beat Slovakia, and they also got themselves a win against Slovakia themselves. Somehow lost 5-4 to Luxembourg as well. They're definitely improving though, and I can see them easily clapping their way through a Nations League group next time around and actually having a better chance of staying up too. On the loan farm, we're up to -19, which is now a grand total of 237 loanees. We desperately want to see this go back into positive numbers again, and there's some quality players out on loan. There really is. Roy Fleming now is 3-star CA out on loan at Sweetie. And you can see they've got Miguel Torres as well. Jeongdong Suk. They've got a lot of the best loanees are all at Sweetie United, and I think they're only going to get better. Torres and Fleming especially. But, Marsa and Melita have got a couple of good players too. Bikikara have got a quite good centre-back in there in terms of CA. But when you look at PA, there's some real talent out on loan, and I think they're only going to start to get better. And I really hope we can get some of our high PA guys that we brought in this summer loans as well, if we can. Maybe not Vieira, though. But I just wanted to highlight Roy. What a season. 33 goals in 38 appearances for Sweetie this season. Top scorer in the league. Banged like 10 for them in various cup competitions as well. He was incredible. Literally over a goal contribution per game from him, which is phenomenal. Joe also banked 20 in the second tier as well. Panacio got 21 for good years. He killed it for them in the Europa Conference League as well. Some second tier stuff in there too. But Staver also got 19 goals for Birkirkara, and he's part of the reason that they fired back into Europe as well. There's a lot more goals going in for these guys, and that's really exciting to see. And I think we can get a couple more guys out there in this summer, some really good quality players. I think we could really take some of these guys to the next level. And most importantly is keeping Roy Fleming at Sweetie. Look at the state of his attributes now at 21. I'm really excited about what he could do at Sweetie over the coming seasons. I mean, the fact is, he could even be the answer to our problems. I don't believe he is, but I believe he very much could be the Haris Živkovic of this save, and is the kind of guy that could lead Sweetie to a Conference League title one day. I truly believe that he's got that kind of quality. Now, I talked about finances earlier in the video, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much here, but you can see again, we're failing FFP despite having £74 million in the bank. We're actually passing it by £70 million at the moment, but it reckons we're going to be at minus £16 million, even though we're literally not. The issue is, the moment you go into the red on the FFP projection thingy, it puts your financial status from rich to okay. The issue there is, of course, the board then starts selling your players. So it's definitely something we're going to have to look at. Hopefully I'll be able to rectify that before stream, but we'll have to see, because I'm obviously going to go a little bit ahead to get us into the transfer window. But still, that's the problem. Our aim for Season 17 of Building a Nation is very simple. We want to get back to where we were last season, kill it, get some great new signings in. Hopefully that striker's a success in the coming seasons. Find some more guys like that. Maybe make a few big sales, because I feel like there's definitely some of that on the cards for us, and really get things going. Get the other Maltese sides really cracking as well, and I think we can continue to build them. Things could be very, very exciting for us in the future. So join us over there on stream for that goodness, and I've got a retro agent video coming up soon as well, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Like the video, subscribe if you're new, hold your gun, capybara, bye-bye.